Alrighty everyone, quiet down. Welcome to our annual board meeting where we decide on a new name for a show. This time it's the one with Kristen Bell. We all love her. Alrighty, let's see. What do we have here? The woman in the house? Nah. The woman in the window? Taken. How about this? The woman in the house across the street from the girl in the window. Any takers? Why is it so quiet? What's going on everyone? James here with another real review, and today we're getting into my spoiler-free review of The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. I'm not kidding, I know it's a mouthful. A huge thank you to Netflix for giving me the chance to watch this early for review. It drops on Netflix January 28th, where you can check out all 8 episodes, not even 30 minutes each, so it is a breezy kind of watch. But before we dive into what the show's about and whether I liked it or I didn't like it too much, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love reviewing movies and TV shows just like this. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button, guys, and get loud down below. And let me know if you are checking out this show this weekend, and if you've watched it, what do you think? Because there's not a lot to unpack, but I have some thoughts. Now, the show does star Kristen Bell, Michael Ealy, and Tom Riley, and without giving away too much, it's all about this one night where Anna, a heartbroken woman, witnesses a murder across the street. Or does she? Now, that is literally all I can really say about the plot, because if I say anything else, well, it kind of gives it away. Now, this does have some sort of satirical spin on The Woman in the Window, which stars Amy Adams. I did review that film. It's on Netflix right now. It's an interesting movie I didn't care for too much, but I'm really excited or I was really excited for this series because of the fact that it is a dark comedy. And it also helps to know that one of the creators wrote for Robot Chicken. But guys, you are not here to hear me talk about all of the behind the scenes stuff. Let's get into my review and start off with the positives. And right at the top of the list, you guys, it's Kristen Bell's performance. She does such a great job leading this cast and really chews up a lot of the scenes that she's in and is all the way bought in, which helps. Seriously, she's 110% in on this role as Anna, someone who is dealing with a lot of addiction, whether it be from alcohol or prescription pills, and she deals with ombrophobia, which is a fear of rain, and the loss of her daughter. So her character is very complex, but it feels like Kristen Bell understood the script the best, and honestly, the writing for her character really was the best among any of the characters introduced in this show. I like that there were some moments where I was really locked into the dramatic angle for this series, and that's due in large part to Kristen Bell. She's a natural, whether it be delivering some amazing jokes or just someone who is, well, commanding your attention, because she did that for me with all 8 episodes. There were moments where she was terrified, and so was I, or there were moments where she's trying to make light of a situation, and I'm kind of awkwardly laughing along with her. So Kristen Bell just helped guide me through this series, and she did deliver, in my opinion, the best performance of the show. But there were also standouts elsewhere, including Christina Anthony, who plays Detective Lane. Now, she does such a good job in this supporting role, you guys. I really like that, yes, they did serve her up some generic dialogue, but you can tell that she made it her own. And even though her role is like that detective who is suspicious of our main character, and we kind of understand that there are a lot of tropes that go along with it, I think that Christina Anthony just displayed a really great deal of understanding when it comes to her role. She knew that, okay, there are moments where Kristen Bell takes lead, but she was able to really take my attention away from Kristen Bell in some scenes, and I liked how serious she was, but also how naturally funny she was in some moments too, especially towards the end. Now, there is another standout, and that is Samsara Leela, who plays Emma, Neil's daughter. Now, her performance definitely gets better as the series goes on. This is a show that doesn't give you everything right away, and it kind of leaves you guessing with some angles and some elements of the story and of its characters. And I like that Emma was one of those characters that I found myself kind of rooting for a little bit in the beginning. She was so sweet, so kind, and I really loved that her and Anna had these parallels, because Anna looked at Emma as her daughter that she lost, Elizabeth. So there are a lot of cool story moments between those two, and I think that both of them did well alongside one another. And Emma, in my opinion, is one of those characters that is going to challenge you. Now, a lot of people are going to dive into the show and try to guess exactly who committed the murder, and it's crazy because there are a lot of twists and reveals in this series that I thought I was going to predict, but it just went the other way. So I do like the fact that the script was unpredictable to a degree, and there aren't a lot of like earth-shattering moments of writing in this show, but I think it's good enough in that regard to where it gets you through. But I do think that this series is at its best when it's not telling jokes and it does take itself seriously and has Anna going out on her own to play detective. That's when it finds its groove, and for me, it's right in the middle. That's the sweet spot for the series and where it felt most bingeable, where I didn't even want to wait for it to, like, go next episode. I tapped on next episode and I wanted to know what was going to happen next. But that was only lasting maybe for like 2 or 3 episodes in the middle there. And again, with 8 episodes to play with, there's a lot of ground to cover, and well, we'll get into it, but let's just say the middle is exactly where I felt the series worked the best. And before we get into the negatives, guys, speaking of the show's length, I did really enjoy how bingeable this series was. And it really is meant to be binged. Like, if you just leave this series and then you come back to it a week later, it's probably not going to play as well. But if you go and try to digest all of this in one night, because you probably can on like a rainy day or something, I think that it'll work out pretty well for you, because it's not meant to be one of those series where you view it weekly. You should probably binge this all together, and I think it'll play much better for many viewers that are going to go and dive into the series this weekend. But guys, that's about all I have for the positives here. Let's get into the negatives, and we're starting off with the comedic angle. This show is selling itself on that dark comedy aspect. It's a satirical spin on The Woman in the Window, again starring Amy Adams. So there are some elements that I saw were directly borrowed from that movie, and they were just putting a playful spin on it, but the comedy here in the series wasn't executed very well. While I did have some early laughs and there were a couple of funny moments in between, the humor here and the dark humor for the most part was just not played out well. The script doesn't really deliver anything fresh or new in this department, and I'm actually kind of surprised, because considering most of the writers and the showrunners here for this series are familiar with comedic writing or comedy series, I figured they might have nailed this area, but I don't necessarily think they did the best job. I mean, the biggest struggle from start to finish for me was whether to take this show seriously or not. And this show really does lean into the drama pretty heavy. I mean, there are long stretches of time where there are just no jokes. So I had to ask myself, am I supposed to be laughing here? Is this supposed to be lighthearted? Because whenever a joke does come, it just kind of falls flat, because I was so invested in the drama and all of the tension and the suspense. And then a joke comes out of nowhere and it feels kind of ill-timed. It's just a shame, because I feel like if this series was able to balance both the drama and the comedy well, it would have been a better end product. And I do think that towards the end, the series unfortunately runs out of momentum, and that is another issue here. Even though these are shorter episodes, I don't feel like the momentum at the end was carried very well. And I'm looking right at you, episode 8. I mean, my goodness, that finale was very weird and choppy, much like the editing. Guys, there was a lot of dialogue that just didn't work for me, and there's this like running joke with casserole that tries to come back around again, and I just really didn't like it. There were plenty of running jokes here that just never worked for me, so every time they popped up, I didn't really smile, I didn't really laugh, and it just never hit home. And maybe it will for some viewers, to be honest, but I just did not like how cheesy it got at the end, and there was a lot of by the numbers approach to the writing and to all the plot elements, and it just really felt underwhelming at the end. And for as much as I was singing the praises of the cast earlier on in this review, I think that this series does a bit of a disservice to the rest of the cast. Michael Ealy is awesome, and I think he's a great actor. He's been in so many numerous projects, and he's proven himself, guys. I don't have to tell you that. But here in this show, they attach his name. He's almost top billing in this show, and he's hardly in this series. And when he is on screen, I feel like the script doesn't really serve him very well. They give him some moments where I'm feeling like he was directed this way, because I've seen him act incredibly natural, where it almost feels like he is unnatural in moments with Kristen Bell, and that is definitely not becoming of Michael Ealy. So I have to assume that it's just a direction issue here, and that also happens with Tom Riley, who plays Neil, Anna's neighbor. Early on, I figured they were propping him up to be a really big player in this show, and as the series goes on, they slowly wane away from him and his acting ability, and eventually I just saw him as like a pedestrian character. And it was so weird how they were handling a lot of these actors and actresses, and I almost wish that maybe they did a better job, or if the episodes were a little bit longer, they would have fleshed out some important character moments. And that's another issue, is that there's just not a lot of depth to this show, and it really doesn't provide anything new. So whenever we do get these high intensity moments where there's a ton of emotion, it just never was fleshed out enough for me to care or for it to have an impact on me as a viewer. So I say all that to say this, guys. Overall, Let me go back to the title. I don't want to mess it up. The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window is unfortunately one of those series that, while it is bingeable and has a good performance by Kristen Bell and a couple others, it is a little forgettable. The comedy just never worked for me, and it does lean on that sometimes, but when it does dive into the drama, it never commits all the way through. And maybe, just maybe, this is one of those shows that isn't meant to be taken seriously, and that's fine. But even when I switched my brain off and I didn't take it seriously, there were a lot of elements that didn't work, whether it be the editing or even the directing, where it kind of felt like it was losing a lot of that momentum at the end. So I wanted this series to be much better than it was, because it was so fun in those first few episodes. But when we get into the middle, I thought, okay, it's going to take on a very dramatic identity, and again, it never commits to that all the way through. And then when we do get the reveals, while they were okay, they sort of fell flat for me. But what I'm curious to see is whether or not the format of this show benefits it or not, because having 8 episodes only 30 minutes each is almost unheard of nowadays, especially on Netflix, where a lot of their episodes are about an hour long. So I'm curious to see if this does get a lot of shine because it's easy for people to watch and consume. However, just because it's easy to watch and get through doesn't make it the most enjoyable experience that I've had so far this year. So yes, it's early in the year, there's a lot more TV shows to go, but I thought that there were some bright spots here, some low moments, and some moments where it just sort of fell flat again, where I just put my arms up and said, meh. So there you have it, you guys. That's my spoiler-free review for Netflix's The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. Guys, if I keep saying it like that, I'm going to run out of breath. I'm asthmatic. Don't hold it against me. But hey, I need to know exactly what you think down below in the comments. Go ahead and get loud. Let me know, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or do you fall right in the middle? And if you haven't already, hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel. I am so thankful for all your support, because guys, we're trucking right along to 10,000, aren't we? We're getting closer and closer. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And I'm gonna go rework some titles I have for some upcoming videos. They can't be this long.